The UK has the RIVA, the US has the IIA working for client education and welfare of architects. There's no Indian counterpart as such. So, what should we expect from COA and IIA respectively?
So we've had similar discussions within within the profession, within academia as well for council of years. The Architects Act was constituted in 1972, and that gave rise to the Council of Architects.
Hmm.
Singular purpose of the Council of Architects and the Architects Act, or let's say to the architect, was to create a body that can register art. That's pretty much fundamentally it.
Yeah.
The provision of the Council of Architecture is unfortunately married to the legacy and to the pitfalls of the act itself.
Hmm.
Because the Architects Act is what, 1972. So where are we now? We're past 50 years that this act
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
been in place. And just imagine that we are kind of blessed that we had various stalwarts at that time who really kind of established that act. But it's unfortunately that nothing has kind of really moved beyond that, even though the profession has moved
Hmm.
by leaps and bounds since that time. So whatever
Hmm.
Council of Architecture is right now and its limitation as to what it can do in bringing the fraternity together and really kind of having debates, discussion, and creating a kind of an environment for architects to flourish. I know
Hmm.
that one various presidents talking about it, but I do see a limitation in the act that empowers the Council of Architecture. Council of Architecture
Okay.
is being a government body under currently it is under the MHRD, so under the Ministry of Human Resources and Development. There have
Hmm.
been discussions that it should be under the Ministry of Urban Development. But fundamentally, all that it does is if someone is an architect, just like, and even though I lamented the fact that all that we do with the Council of Architecture is really register, but
Hmm.
fact remains that the Act empowers only that. There's very little that we can actually do.
Hmm.
RIBA and even let's say the American Institute of Architects and all these kind of things, they have been empowered by a much larger statutory framework to things.
Okay. Okay.
I know that it's difficult for young architects, including young architects such as yourself and a lot of the people who might be listening to this to really understand. But legislation has a lot of control over multiple things that we do. And it's something that we don't really probably get into. But I actually take this opportunity to encourage every architect
Hmm.
once in their life, actually read the Architect Act. You do read it. It's not that big a document where when you kind of read it,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
understand it. You probably understand 70% of it, not understand it. But you will understand that the Council of Architecture, no matter how much we want to kind of blame them for things and, that it's not doing enough to really kind of bring the people up,
Hmm.
you'll understand the limitations for it. Indian Institute of Architects, a completely different ballgame, is not bound by
Hmm.
statutory procedures beyond just basically being an institute under the Charitable Act, having that. We're
Hmm.
free to make a much larger memorandum of association that is necessary for any such institute to work on. The problem there is that it is fundamentally an institute. As an institute, talk about things, they can make publications, they can help bring the fraternity to the various chairpersons of IIA or regional chapters. They have worked with vendors and companies. Have you ever been to an IIA event?
No, sir.
Fundament, and it ends up being one of those kind of celebratory nights where a lot of art come together. There's a couple of vendors and people from the AEC industry from sponsoring that event.
Hmm.
They all come together, talk about the same old things, and end up with a glass of whiskey in their hand. And I think that's unfortunately where a lot of kind of IIA has moved on to. I don't want to generalize that because I know that the various chapters and regions which are actually doing exceptional work as well in promoting a larger kind of a thing. But I think what I'm trying to say is that Council of Architecture by purpose and intent, the sole purpose is just to register architects or do
Hmm.
register
Right. Right.
by purpose of its memorandum of association to just kind of create a platform for getting the fraternity together. I remember that in 2007, the tremendous push to have an amendment to the Architect Act.
Hmm.
It had gone up to the Rajya Sabha. There were various aspects of the Architects Act that we really wanted to push. We were trying to get the fraternity together, getting opinions on how this Council of Architecture, the Architect Act needs to change. I remember various senior professionals at that time. I was young, much like you. They had talked about the idea that we need to probably have a Institute of Chartered Architects. When you have Institute of Chartered Architect, that means much would probably be able to kind of combine these aspirations of these two entities together and help do the statutory aspects of ensuring that yes, only architects are working, safeguarding their interest by Council of Architecture that, but also to have that kind of institutional framework by which we can inculcate larger, more value systems, we can conduct better training and have something that probably closer to what Riba is able to.
Hmm.
But this means a complete upheaval of the act.
Yeah, right.
And I think a lot of the frustration that we get to see in this younger generation, rightfully so. As a slightly senior, I don't really want to put myself in that complete senior district, but yes, I am probably a few generations just ahead of you. But no matter, if someone is 70 or someone is 60, there are various levels of frustrations that we do feel in the
Hmm.
and I can see right from all those aspects that has happened from internship or
Hmm.
to, really finding a job and getting valued as an artist within the younger generation. Rage is understandable. And I think it's justified. That frustration is understandable.
Right.
Because,
It's not being
it's-
utilized to any productive work.
yeah, but I think we need more younger people to kind of really come forward and talk about those aspects. Have you actually read the Architects Act or the Council of Architects Handbook and really understood what goes on with you understand, then if you're part of this, let's say, have you chosen to become a part of IIA and then probably become a part of the Executive Council of Architecture? I
Hmm.
mean, those opportunities exist. No one says that for you to be a member of Council of Architects, you have to be like 50 and above
Yeah.
and be young. You have to be within the system to kind of probably make a change within the system.
Hmm.
And I know in my own way, I had tried that when I was part of, yeah. And then my own personal aspirations of where I want to be in life took over and took those changes. But I think it was a wonderful opportunity being in Council of Architecture to understand the people, to understand the systems that they're working with.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think the younger generation has to move beyond that rant and kind of really be part of that change. You have to influence, you have to process them out. And then, you
Hmm.
know what? We demand to change the Architect Act. It is 2024. How can we still be working on an act with those limited intentions? Right.
That's right. That's right. And I completely agree with you at this point that when it was instituted, the circumstances were very different from where we are right now. So that is understandable, sir. But I would like to follow up on this question. If neither COA nor IIA are taking responsibility, then or either they don't have that kind of scope of work that you what hope do we have then?
Hope is hope. When you use the word hope, it does not have to be parametric. It's very important for the younger generation to have hope. When you
Hmm.
lose hope that nothing's going to change, then you just become part of that same redundant system that, so hone nahi wala hai. And that is a bit of a problem with the younger generation because I think a lot of the younger people are very emotive, they're very expressive. But I think that you need to have hope. Everyone needs to have hope. That sense of positivity that things can change. Thing is,
Hmm.
once you have that hope, once you have that positivity, or once you have that anger, what are you going to do about it? You need to. There needs to be. I mean, with 400 colleges churning out on an average about 80 students, much what's happening in every private college at least.
Hmm.
Looking about 30,000 architects graduating every year. And I know that question is going to come that, with so many architects, what do we really do with them? But with all of that happening, I don't really see, or I'm not hearing about anyone who is really getting into the system to make that thing. You have to have hope, but you have to get into the system. Some of
Hmm.
us needs to get into politics. How many architects do we know that have really gotten into politics and are trying to make changes at the urban level? We need to get people who are getting into administrative services make those changes. We need to get people who are getting into the Council of Architecture and affecting those changes. We need people who understand those things and see how we can. So yeah, the other side is not going to happen.
Hmm. So how do you suggest that people get into Council of Architects? What is the process?
So the Council of Architecture, just like they do hold election, there is an executive council for the Council of Architecture, which is meant to identify a large spread of society.
Hmm.
So by that spread, we have, let's say, the chief architect from all the states who then will talk about the government projects. And we also have designees from academia as well, who are supposed to be part of that process. And from the general profession, at least what the Act currently says is that there can be people from the Indian Institute of Architects who can be part of the Executive Council. Elections were held just a couple of months back, and that person becomes, when you're part of the Executive Council, you're part of the discussions by which these changes can be.
Hmm.
Now, let's say, Tommy, you actually wanted to be part of the Council of Architects from the inside and do it. One is that, let's say, if they have some sort of an endeavor and they're taking people on contract, just like I became part as a research associate.
Hmm.
That's one way of doing it. I was part at NIA, so I couldn't really hold influence on a larger thing. That was not what I wanted to be.
Hmm.
But one of you decides that as you grow up and you become chief architect of a particular state, then ex officio, through that designation, you also become part of that
Hmm.
council. Can be part of the Indian Institute of Architects. Elections are held for nomination to the Council of Architects.
Hmm.
And I believe someone from Nashik or someone from Maharashtra has been chosen. So there are people who get in from the profession who actually represent the profession.
There are only
There's a
five people.
complete way.
I mean, from IIA, only 5 people are selected in the council,
Yeah.
right?
So
Yeah.
I remember when we were proposing the changes in Act, the Architect Act, there were various suggestions that why only Indian architect? Why not ISOLA? Why not IUDI? Why not, why can't we have other
Hmm.
professional bodies also coming in? And why can't it be a percentage of the total architects and not designated as just 5 people?
Hmm.
So let's say if we have maybe 2 lakh practicing architects right now, why can't it represent that, maybe 1% of that total this thing?
Hmm.
It needs to be a statistical number. But then that's a policy change. That's a legal change that needs to be.
Right.
So the process, and the process will require patience. So in India, it requires persistence as well. But right now, if the intent is not there, then whether it's process or persistence, we won't be having people stepping up.